The path of integrity can be a difficult road to follow, especially when there are people that benefit from beautiful lies. But sometimes, when all hope seems lost, unlikely heroes emerge, ready and willing to shine a light on corruption. Join the Honey Badgers as we discuss the Sarkeesian effect with special guests Davis Aurini and Jordan Owen. As always, the show will be available for download after the broadcast at honeybadgerbrigade.com.
Like a furry torpedo to the jugular, this is Honey Badger Radio, radio with bite.
Hello and welcome to Honey Badger Radio. Tonight's topic is the Sarkeesian effect, and we've got a really great show for you. We've got our wonderful panelists over here. Tonight's special guests are Jordan Owen and Davis Aurini. How are you guys?
We are doing great. Yeah, good to be here.
And we also have on our panel, we've got Girl Writes What? Girl?
You want me to talk here, don't you?
Yeah.
That's the idea.
I'm a little tired. I've been busy in the sandwich mines all day. I'm the foreman of the 7th level, and it's underground. So, yeah, you can understand why I might be a little bit, under the weather. Sandwich mining is a tough road to hoe. So there you go.
We've got Allison Tiemann.
Hi, my name is Allison Tiemann. So you can identify my voice now, since a lot of people seem to not be able to tell us apart. I have been busy working on my baby, which is my webcomic Xenospora. That's with an X, as in ox or xylophone, not a Z. People have been asking that. And you can find it at xenospora.com, and I shall retreat into the darkness.
We've also got Hannah Wallen. Hey, Hannah.
Hello. I am the author of Breaking the Glasses, lecturer of false accusers, and all-around mouthy bitch. And that's all I've got to say right now.
We've got Crystal Garcia over here. Crystal.
Hi, yeah. You know me and the mute button. God. Okay.
Spider Pig,
so,
you're letting us down.
So, yeah, right now, there's a petition going on right now with change.org, and you can find it on Honey Badger Radio and the Honey Badger Radio group. And it's to petition the UN to have UN Men, where men's human rights are brought to the table.
And as always, I am your host, Rachel Edwards, and you can find my blog where I ramble about different things, usually having to do with egalitarianism and other nerdy stuff at naughtynerdist.tumblr.com. And I think Allison has a couple things she'd like to say.
Yeah, before we go into it, I'd like to announce that Honey Badger Radio is going to be supporting. We will be attending the Kennesaw State University Men's Male Students in Peril Conference in support of Sage Gerard and his work bringing men's issues to college campuses. So we, the women of Honey Badger Brigade, will be preparing a warm, cordial, and completely nonviolent, emphasis on completely nonviolent, welcome to the feminists who intend to protest and or disrupt the event. So, hi. Looking forward to seeing you there.
I actually can't wait because here I am, I'm this controversial figure, and I actually haven't had any feminists protest me, and
no feminists throwing beer bottles at you.
Yeah, no.
At least
no,
make them full if you do.
Fire alarm, nothing. I'm feeling left out. I'm feeling kind of neglected, and yeah. So apparently, this protest that they're planning is huge. They even did a fundraiser for it. And they were getting close to their total. I think they were $150 away, and Sage Gerard himself swooped in to the rescue and donated $175 to the protest.
Oh my gosh!
Wow. Very, very, very upset.
That was excellent.
I think we should have some tea Like we should have some tea available for our guests.
Oh,
Maybe
yeah,
pull them in some
Maybe
comfy
some
chairs.
scones. Let's
scones
get
and tea, and we'll just have a nice quiet discussion like we would wanted to have for how many decades.
Well, I think we should just set up like a table of like tapas and chicken wings right by the fire alarm.
Yeah. Maybe we could delay them slightly, eh?
Well, I don't know. They could just grab a plate, yank the alarm, and run, right? Like,
for those who don't understand the reference, Cafe, the Center of Equality, a Canadian Association for Equality, has put on many men's issues events in Canada, and several of them have been protested by feminists who ended them by pulling fire alarms when they failed to actually get the speakers to shut up. So yeah, that's the reference. But I wanted to finish up my items as well. Sorry to step on. No, actually, I'm not sorry. I always enjoy stepping on you, Karen.
yeah, I know.
Yeah.
You get me back. That's okay.
I do.
So I wanted to announce that we there's some changes at our patron page. If you are interested in becoming a Honey Badger patron, I've actually corrected the name. There isn't an extra R in it anymore. So for those of you who are a bit foiled by the fact that I've been telling you I've been misspelling it for I don't know 8 months now. Yeah, it's no longer misspelled. So there's that. I've corrected my own stupidity. It's Patreon with an E /Honey Badger Radio. Just the 2 R's now. And if you're interested in donating, it's more than donating. It's sort of establishing an ongoing relationship with the Honey Badger team. And if you donate $1 for us, you'll be getting previews of show advertisements and priority on the questions if you leave them under those show advertisements, so we actually know that you have a question. Don't just beam it at us telepathically. And for the $2 reward, you'll be getting previews of the Honey Badger cartoons that Dr. Randomer Cam so graciously provides whatever he emerges from a drunken stupor. And $5 reward, Karen will read porn in the seductive. So if you have a $5 reward, you get access to this. So I don't know if that's something you want.
The voice of Gilbert Godfrey.
The seductive vocal stylings of Gilbert Godfrey. And what we're going to be doing for the $7.50 and $10 rewards, you're going to have to patron us to find out. So once again, that link is Patreon /Honey Badger Radio. Just the 2 R's.
I feel so dirty.
Why? Just in general or specific?
It was a bit about Mr. Popo taking it in the ass, wasn't it?
Oh, okay. All right. I sense the silly place approaching here. Okay, I have one last thing to get out, and then you guys can take it to hell. Okay. Mad link on the advertisement requested 3 hours ago. Can you Honey Badgers on tonight's show make a quick shout out to feminists for alienating people by calling them men's rights activists who may eventually join the men's rights movement? Yeah, let's take a moment to thank the feminists for essentially polarizing the battlefield and making everybody who's not a feminist a men's rights activist. Congratulations, everybody who's listening who's not a feminist. Or even slightly feminist, even if you identify as a feminist and you're just ever so slightly feminist critical, or even if you get on the wrong side of one of those social justice tempests, you're now a men's rights activist. So congratulations, welcome to the club.
Yay!
Thank you, feminists.
Welcome.
And that's all I have. So I'll give it back to Rachel.
Oh gosh, that's just so ridiculous.
Well,
not just cupcakes. That's what they need now.
Let George.
There's a great on Return of Kings. A couple of the writers there, they came up with a brand new blog with fake names and decided to post a 1 to 10 list of the hottest and ugliest women working for Gawker or one of those rags. They didn't.
Wow.
They tweeted it once, and by the next day when they woke up, it had hundreds of retweets, thousands of views. Because these outraged, morally offended feminists said, "Oh my God, these men, they're saying their women are ugly. They can't say that." And then they're retweeting it to all their followers. "Oh my God, this is so horrible. Look at it." These people are so broken that if you offend them, they need to share it with all of their equally broken people, so they're all miserable. And I was thinking about that, how Gamergate's a bunch of MRAs. Well, they're not, but you know what? A lot of people are going to start asking, well, what's an MRA? I've never heard of that. And even if they come in with a
And how
bad
did I
attitude,
become one?
Yeah. And it really just goes back to things like it's like you said, Davis. I mean, when Anita Sarkeesian received child pornography, what did she do? She retweeted it to all of her followers.
No.
Mentally ill people of this variety need to make others miserable. So if something triggers their broken little amygdala, then they share it with all their followers. This almost made me puke. You should look at it. Like when we pull something out of the fridge, when we pull something out of the fridge and say, "Oh, it's off," you smell it. We know we're being assholes.
Yeah.
Either that, or we have a poor sense of smell, and we want someone to confirm it for us. In my case, I'm always being an asshole, but I like to play the devil's advocate. It's possible it could be legitimate.
Well, my thing with the calling everybody who disagrees with feminism as an MRA makes me think of the Discordian religion, which I don't know if y'all know about the Discordians, but it's kind of an alternative religion, and it's very, very close to the Church of the Subgenius, and it's great because if you are in the Discordian faith, you become a Discordian pope. And in their response to Catholicism and all that. And so if you know a Discordian pope, you automatically become a Discordian pope, and which, by the way, makes all of you Discordian popes, because I am a Discordian pope by extension. But anyway, it's like that. It's like literally, just pointing to the sheer absurdity of the label that of trying to label people. That's literally what it is. And it's like, if you read, what's amazing is they're really the ones that are seething with contempt for women. If you listen to what they actually say, I mean, Laurie Penny wrote that article about Gamergate, and all the people on Gamergate are all this, that, and the other. Of course, she doesn't quote anybody directly, but she says, they say this, they say that. And then at one point she's saying, and those cunts, those mean little cunts just have to be, like she's talking ironically to how Gamergate people think. But it's like, it just sounds like she's working herself up into a tizzy saying this stuff. And I'm thinking, my God, if she was projecting any more, we could use her for movie night,
Oh,
yeah.
No, it's that way with all of their stuff. I mean, like, even looking at the doxing behavior and stuff like that, right? Like feminists, like, it's never okay to dox. It's never okay to dox, except when we do it, because the people that we dox are bad people.
And just for people who don't know, doxing is when you reveal, when somebody's anonymous on the internet and you reveal their personal information.
And did you hear they doxed a federal agent, by the way?
Yes. Yes, I heard about that. That was probably one of the funniest things that's come out of Gamergate. Wow. They're like, yeah, I know all your information, blah, blah, blah. And they're like, you do know that I work for the government, and by extension, I have to have this investigated. Yeah. Enjoy your party,
wow.
Then. Yep. Well, I tell you, I was driving home, and I've been out running some errands, and I was kind of mentally prepping for this, for tonight, for this show. And I was thinking about, like, everything I've seen. If you think about it, Anita Sarkeesian got up on that stage at the XOXO festival, and essentially all she did was try to do like a stand-up comedy routine to get everybody to laugh at her detractors. There was no content to it, no actual arguments. I mean, her main slap at me was that I wear a bathrobe in some of my videos. And I was thinking about it, and I thought, what the thing that really cracks me up, and Davis and I have been called every name in the book twice, but the one that really cracks me up is when they call us pseudo-intellectuals. And I love that because they think that because Davis and I have different viewpoints from them, we have different opinions, that we must be, pseudo-intellectuals, which is a very Marxist idea. You know, Marx was very much of the opinion that if you disagree with Marx, there's something wrong with you. But I was thinking the people who tout themselves as being the intellectual vanguard, the intellectual elite of all of this, if you so much as tap them even so slightly, they have they don't just have a thin skin, they have no skin. They have Harlequin type ichthyosis, no skin. It's all just dried muscle tissue. And if you poke them, they will go from being these preening avant-garde intellectual prima donnas, they will turn into the biggest bald-faced, hold my breath till I turn blue, tantrum-throwing, diaper-throwing crybabies you could possibly imagine. I mean, we announced our campaign, our Patreon campaign, we announced it, and the next day, or the day after, very soon after, there was an article in Badass Digest, and I read that article. That's the article where they said we were worse than ISIS terrorists, or we were similar to ISIS terrorists. They said they called us assholes, douchebags, I think dipshits. It's like I actually made a list.
I think we got wannabe Nazis from them.
Yeah, it's like
wannabe Nazis.
Yeah.
Oh gosh. Well,
Right.
okay, but save some for
You know what?
for the
They're a
interview,
child. They're a child that painted a mural with their fecal matter, and they want praise for it. It doesn't have to mean anything. Just a pat on the head.
You guys are great.
Yeah. But that would be rape if you patted them on the head. So watch out.
All right. You know what? Giving credit where credit's due. See, I think there are certain femmes that really know what they're talking about. Andrea Dworkin, for instance, universally recognized as the ugliest feminist on the planet ever, for all perpetuity. If you read her books about sex, how all penis and vagina sex is rape and all that, if you read through all of that, flip it upside down, you will become a sexual carnosaur. She actually knows. She has sex down to a T. She just hates it. You know, she sees a child laugh, and she makes a farty sound with her lip. Yeah. That's what you have. You have to read it in reverse. You know, they actually, some of them really know what they're talking about. They just hate anything beautiful, true, pure, kind.
Well,
okay, well, before you guys continue, we do have to read the news. So
we do have some structure to this show.
We do, yeah. There's usually some structure.
We'll have plenty of time for all this. We'll cut loose after basic discussion, and then everything. Okay. And you guys can.
Dude.
It's okay. You can also comment on anything we end up going to. Hannah, do you want to read the news? We've only got two segments for that, and then 2 show segments, and then we'll hop in.
I can already see a name in this that I'm going to completely butcher. But in any case, all right. Mayoral debate upsets activist. In the ongoing political race for mayor of Hamilton, Ontario, Canada, gender ideologues have found a new thing to be upset about. Wait, there's a new thing they haven't been upset about already. During a debate, an audience member that was a reported activist asked about gender equality and how they plan to handle gender equality as mayor. While it's a legitimate question, 2 candidates approached it in a less than respectful manner, resulting a ridiculous open letter to every man in the building. Joey Meeksko wrote a long diatribe about how joking that your wife wears the pants in the relationship doesn't give women agency, and how this misstep is further proof that politics is an impenetrable boys' club. In reality, it only seems to prove that some people are jerks and not all politicians take gender activists seriously. But then it's easy to see sexism everywhere when you're finding misogyny in your soup. They got offended because one of the politicians said...
Basically, he said something along the lines of, the only thing I fear is my wife, and I think the other one told the activist to sit down, and that was the gist of it. So because like two out of all of the candidates didn't refer to her with the utmost respect, or him with the utmost respect and decency, they didn't specify. But
Failure to venerate.
yeah, this other person decided to write this long open this open letter about how this is just a sign that politics is this boys' club, and women aren't being properly represented because there was only one woman up there who was running for mayor out of everybody.
Probably because feminists have this terrible insistence on pretty princess feminism, and you have to be up there and be the pretty princess. But as soon as you would do that, then you're not sticking your elbows out and digging in and doing the work, and you're not going to be successful as a politician. And if you go the other route, then you are not, you're not kowtowing to the feminist mentality that women should be venerated.
Can I point something out?
I'll tell you.
How do men take away women's agency? I mean, the very construction of that is sexist, because you can't stop somebody from having choices or acting. I won't go any further into it. You've been trying to talk, Jordan, so there you go.
Oh well, just these are people. These are people. How do men take away women's agency? Listen, these are people who think that having to push the block button when someone's annoying you on the internet is a grievous affront to their dignity. All you have to do is clear your throat around them, and you've taken away their agency.
So until we have telepathic block buttons, they won't be happy.
Right.
Actually, no.
I was just going to point out.
No. A telepathic block button would not...
Davis, wait, Davis had something to say.
Keep in mind, this is a Hamilton protester, and Hamilton, like I used to live in Hamilton, they have the most idiotic protesters in all of Canada. Okay, see, like the regular people that live in Hamilton, that like living in Hamilton, that are going to McMaster to go to McMaster, they're fine. But all of the protesters wish they lived in Toronto. And so these are the people that are not good enough to protest in Toronto. They walked up and down Main Street when the Afghanistan war started saying, 1, 2, 3, 4, we don't want your racist war. Guys, Afghanistan isn't a race, it's a country. Like the protesters, they are such abject buffoons and clowns. It is, like, they make your average feminist protester look bad.
So I guess it makes sense that they didn't take him seriously.
All I have to say though is that it's not enough for feminists to have like a telepathic block button, right? Because they in a perfect world,
right,
a feminist should never have to block anyone because there would exist no person who would offend them.
Right.
That is the utopia that they want.
Yeah.
They refuse to acknowledge a world outside of themselves that they need to learn about. They believe there is no higher truth, that 2 + 2 = 4 is cultural hegemony that evil white male mathematicians force the rest of the world to believe in. And so if they believe in something subjectively, that's equally true to anything else, and so they should never be offended.
And they're purely solipsistic, right? Like, so it's how the entire world affects me. It's not how the entire world exists and affects itself and interacts with all of its different parts and all of those things, right? And no, none of the universe is there only as relates to them.
Well, I mean, how narcissistic is it, and how self-absorbed is it to think that you're being oppressed because when you get on a subway car and see a man sitting with his knees apart, and you think, oh, that's the patriarchy. Yes, the patriarchy, and we're men are dominating the space, blah blah blah. And it's not just because they have testicles that require a certain amount of space. It's like somebody actually on a post somewhere said, we sit like that when we're at home by ourselves. How are we oppressing you then?
It ain't about you, babe. I'm just airing out the Duke.
It's not even testicles. It's not even testicles. Men have narrower hips. They have a heavier upper body, and they're a little more top heavy because a lot of their upper body weight is in their shoulders and their chest rather than their abdomen. Yeah. And so they are actually spreading their legs to keep balanced.
Right.
Especially when they're sitting in a sideways seat on the subway.
Yeah. Yeah, and it doesn't even matter.
Tipping over.
Yeah. It doesn't even matter if there's nobody sitting on you on either side. You still have to, inchy squinchy your knees together. And I'm sorry to sound like a chauvinist pig to all these feminist protesters out there, but ladies, you all know full well that if there was some public circumstance where men needed to give women extra room for their tits, you would raise ungodly hell if anybody questioned your right to do that. So don't piss on me because I don't feel like, there's that whole thing. You'll never know how, as a man, you'll never know how this feels. You'll never know how that feels. You women, you'll never know how it feels to be kicked in the balls. Trust me, it feels like you're about to vomit your intestine. That's how it feels, with the most surging, burning pain you can imagine. So please, for the love of all that is good and pure, allow me to not have to experience some vague shadow of that while I sit next to you on the fucking subway car. And if you have a problem with how I'm sitting, stand the fuck up, grab a strap, and leave me be.
Wow.
Good night, everybody.
And with that, okay. Well, Rachel, I think we still have one more news item.
Yes,
Sorry,
yes,
Crystal, but we gotta.
Yeah, I was gonna step in and say that anyway. All right, Hannah, do you have the next news item?
I am losing my sound. Can you guys hear me?
Yes. Yeah, we can hear you. Yep.
Okay.
I will.
Okay. Vice reporter infiltrates public meeting. A Vice reporter recently scraped the bottom of the metaphorical barrel for a news story. The reporter decided that he would enter a Voice for Men's forums in hopes of finding rampant misogyny. He then, quote, infiltrated, end quote, a public meeting in a pub to discuss starting a chapter in Melbourne, Australia. The reporter wrote of the wounded men he met in the pub and how anti-feminism was a slippery slope. What he didn't know is that the men he felt he'd thoroughly tricked already had him on their radar. Apparently, he stood out like a sore thumb. We spoke with some of the individuals at the meeting who expressed that it was laid back and business as usual. With public meetings in public spaces somehow being newsworthy these days, it only serves to show the desperation of sites like Vice to find a continuous supply of clickbait.
Wow.
We
have to congratulate the Vice reporters for their sleuthing. They found a forum in a public space that was open to the public, and they infiltrated it.
I don't want to hear from us. We're all rape apologists.
Let me say a little bit more about this, though, because it was kind of interesting. I'm actually in contact with a lot of the people, or at least a couple of the people who were at said meeting. And they were utterly shocked. They're like, what? They're like, there's an article about this? We just chilled out at a pub. We were talking about opening a chapter of, for Melbourne. And, this guy did seem a little bit off and a little bit sketchy. So we already were thinking, okay, this is a little bit weird. We don't know who this person is. And they said he didn't stay very long. He only stayed for a little bit of it. And they're like, oh, gosh, really? Yeah, it was really ridiculous.
He probably wasn't getting the story he wanted.
Yeah, they basically just went to the pub, had basic discussions, like why they're there, how they came to be in the MRM and things like that. And it was just basic stuff from what I understand. And I think the general portrayal was that they were all angry white men. And there were people in the comments saying, like, I'm not white. And I have some legitimate issues. Heaven forbid, like, guys should want to see their kids and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Then that sexist jerk went back and wrote about anti-feminism and said not a word about Uncle Feminism.
Jordan and I were originally planning.
Yeah, where's the equal time for Uncle?
What were we saying, Davis?
We're just doing horrible puns right now.
Wait. Davis had something to say.
Yeah, we were originally planning to contact Vice because in the past, they've done some amazing reporting. They were our generation's Rolling Stone. But over the past couple of months, they've been completely taken over by feminists in the comments section. They've gone completely anti-Gamergate. they've sold out. It's pathetic.
Oh, somebody asked me when did Vice go downhill, and I was like, oh, that was when Gavin McInnes left.
Yeah, that's
right.
That's
and
about,
whether you
that's
like
right
Gavin
about
McInnes
when.
or not, at least he had the balls to like say whatever the fuck he feels like saying.
Well, and one of the people we're going to be interviewing on the documentary is oh god, what's her name? Let me check my.
Should we even be saying their names? I mean, we're worried about some of these people getting threatened.
She already has been threatened extensively. Justine Tunt. She's a programmer. She's outspoken when it comes to politics. Was an organizer for Occupy Wall Street, and was just furious about how quickly that got co-opted. And so she wrote an article defending Gavin McInnes, who was criticizing transsexuals like herself. She defended him. She's like, you know what? This isn't harassment. He's saying his opinion. I think it's wrong. He's not harassing me. You know who does harass me? The exact same people that got him fired. They've harassed me multiple times. They've tried to get me fired from my job.
Yeah, well, I mean, we have actually, I mean, I don't even want to, Davis knows who I'm talking about, I don't even want to allude to the person's name or even their gender, but one person that was supposed to be in our documentary, their bosses, they were actually told flat out, you will lose your job if you appear in this documentary. So, I mean, people are clamping down left and right trying to, but anyway, let's let you guys finish.
And the reason Justine's in it is because she's got guts. Like, I told her what we were doing with the documentary, and at first she's like, you know what, I've been harassed a lot over the past few months. I'm not really looking forward to more of it. But I told her a bit more. She's like, you know what, this is a good thing you're doing. I'm in. Like, I don't want to be in because I know I'm going to get flack for this, but I'm in.
Well, one of the amazing things, and Steven Pinker spoke about this kind of extensively, is that the town square effect, and how sort of revolutions against the dictator tend to happen in front of the presidential palace, where everybody suddenly realizes that, you know, I knew the dictator was an asshole, but I wasn't aware that everybody else knew the dictator was an asshole. But now I'm seeing that everybody else knows what I know, and we all know what we all know, and the emperor really does have no clothes, so let's fucking cut the dictator's head off.
Yeah.
Right? And what they're doing, and this is one of the things that I've suggested in the past, just like not that long ago, is maybe having an international coming out day for anti-feminists, right? Where we all just say, this is my real name and this is where I live. Come at me, bro, right? Because they can't take us all out at once. What they're doing is they're taking out individuals who are operating under anonymity or who are feeling like they're isolated, right? And that they can't really speak. And they are bullying those people, they're silencing those people, and they can only do it because everybody's been isolated.
Well, right? You know, Reason Magazine ran a study, which you know, obviously, it's anything they do is going to be slanted to their focus, their perspective. But Reason Magazine actually did a survey and found that by their totals, the majority of gamers embrace a very libertarian ethos. You know, they're pro-choice, pro-drug legalization, and but they want you to stay out of their shit. You know, and so they have this very libertarian stance. And so I think that one thing that could really, very positive thing that could come out of this is that we can really rally people finally to a third position. You know, gaming could actually be that bastion for people to realize, oh, hey, I'm, you know, these values that I embrace are embraced universally. If you think about it, most video games have a very libertarian sense of ethics and right and wrong. So that just innately. And so I think that hopefully, you know, that could become that rallying point. We could actually maybe see 3 podiums, you know, in future presidential elections, which my policy is I don't vote unless there's 3 people at the debates. If there's 3 people at the presidential debates, I will vote, or I'll consider voting, but not until then. Running back and forth between 2 cages is not freedom.
Well, see, with us in Canada, we have left, further left, and super, super mega hard left, and then even more left. So we have like 4 political parties. They're all to the left of what the Americans would call center.
Oh, yeah.
The way I describe Harper is he's the guy that says, I need to be left 90% of the time. So 10% of the time when it really matters for Canada's future, I'm going to do the thing that's good for Canada. The rest of the time, I need to suck up to the voters. Or rather, I need to suck up to the media.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to take a neutral position on as far as this is concerned, because I know a lot of people are really worried about the politicization. Politicization. I don't know.
You can do it, Rachel. You can do it.
Yeah. Yeah, tongue twisters. Yes. Yeah, they're worried about Gamergate becoming heavily political.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people have those different viewpoints, and I think they really want this to be nonpartisan or non-political. But I do understand what you're talking about, and I do myself find that I find myself frustrated with the political parties just in general, because I think most people don't fall under any of those categories. They just want somebody that's going to do the job correctly.
Yeah, just do the post office and leave everything else the fuck alone, or the military, what have you, and leave us alone. I mean, that's all all we need. I mean, but
I like to break it down to basic ideological principles rather than parties, because I really like, with American politics, I don't like either party. But and I know, Jordan, you absolutely hate Assassin's Creed. I'm loving it. But
the first one. I haven't played any of the others.
The conflict of that video game is that there's essentially 2 organizations. Both of them recognize that they will never be able to figure out the absolute truth. And so the one organization decides to manufacture a truth and brainwash and dictate it to everybody. The other organization wants to try and get wiser, to learn more about the truth, even if they'll never know it perfectly, and try and teach people to think for themselves and to improve themselves. So the one is totalitarian, the other wants a plethora of ideas. It's libertarian in that sense. And I think that's really what the whole debate boils. Whether we're talking about, feminism, anti-feminism, like extreme Marxism versus free markets, it's whether you think one truth needs to rule supreme and you're willing to kill other people to do it, or if you're willing to let other people live their own lives.
Yeah, no, I would agree with that.
I think as far as the United States goes, one of the big mistakes we make here is that we honestly believe we have 2 different political parties, when we really don't. We have 2 different versions of the same political party, and it's the control everybody's shit party. And it's really, they have different ways they want to do it, but they both want exactly the same thing. They both want to control everyone's money, and they both want to control everyone's morals. And it's just that they have different philosophies on what gives them the right to tell everybody who to be and what to do and how to live and how to have money and how to spend money and how they shouldn't have money and how they shouldn't spend money. And that's where we are right now with the 2 major parties. And as far as calling it left and right, it's not even accurate anymore. Neither one of them is fully left or fully right, because neither one of them does what they say they're going to do, and neither one of them follows what they say they believe. So we're stuck in a situation where we have corrupt and corrupt. We don't have left and right.
I call it shit salad versus shit sandwich.
Yeah, very much so. and it's all shit, and it's not healthy.
Well, the way politics works here in America, I saw this in a political cartoon. It's basically, on the left, taxes are higher and abortion is legal. On the right, taxes are lower and abortion is illegal. That's it. Everything else is exactly the same.
Pretty much. Well, and
I gotta put my elbows
illegal on both sides too. It's just they'll forbid.
I gotta put my elbows in here because
I know you're gonna change the topic.
The thing is, as this relates to both Gamergate and the men's rights movement, what that means is that politics will not contain the solution for either one.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. But I wanted to point
and one more extension of that is, I was going to say that both men's rights and Gamergate isn't about dictating a new standard. It's saying stop dictating a standard. Stop manipulating the laws to all. It's not about I'm going to replace the present authorities. That I don't want an authority. I don't want any Sarkeesian telling us how to play games, and I don't want feminists enforcing arbitrary standards that we need this X number of girls need to take engineering. What if girls just don't want to take engineering degrees?
Yeah.
Or what if men don't want to be nurses? Or whatever.
Let Allison.
Okay, I just wanted to quickly say, it seems like in the gamer culture, there's a lot of flexibility for being interested in different, I guess different identities, different lifestyles. I mean, look at gaming is really about becoming a different person, you know, or at least the RPGs, you know, and I can't see how feminists look at that and say this is chauvinism or misogyny. It's not. It's something transcendent. Anyway, I'll let Rachel take it away.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, before I go into show segments, Nephenor says, "Why settle for the lesser evil? Vote Cthulhu." I agree. Yeah, that's the elder god, Cthulhu Katagan. Yeah, anyway, all right. Here we go. This actually plays into the whole idea of, you know, the whole you've got to my way or the highway kind of thing. So this is actually a really great segue. Anyway, so I entitled this "Hook 'em While They're Young." It is understandable that parents have certain values to instill in their children, but sometimes their well-meaning intentions can go too far. Another Huffington Post writer spoke about the importance of instilling feminism in her child, a 2-year-old boy. Much like the mother mentioned in last week's show, she mentions that she's, quote, running out of time, unquote, to instill feminist values in him. She mentions that her son likes girls and boys television shows in equal degrees. But instead of applauding this, she takes it as a sign that he'll normalize gender stereotypes as he gets older. Has she never thought of just turning off the TV? Quote, "If I don't say anything at all now, while he is 2, am I losing the battle as soon as it has begun? The reinforcement of gender stereotypes, of class prejudices, of racist ideology, it is too important to me that I bring Millen up." God, his name is Millen. Oh my gosh.
Milan? I think it's probably Milan.
Milan. No, it's Milin. So it's okay. Seeing beyond these things. If I don't prompt him to question the world now, if I don't explain how things should be now, surely it will be too hard later. That's in a question. There's a question mark there. Anyway, unquote. She even points out in the article that she knows her son doesn't know what's happening in the shows, but that quickly devolves into her fears that the media is morphing her child into a tiny bigot. Well done, feminism. If not for you, this little boy might have grown up in a household where his actions weren't constantly being interpreted as signs of bigotry.
Oh,
wow. I two things. One, I grew up watching cartoon shows where kings and queens were always the good guys, and we loved kings and queens. And then I got to junior high and high school, and I looked into the actual history of monarchy and its bloodthirsty reign of terror, all this stuff, and I thought, okay.
The reign of terror was democracy.
Well, I was using that as a metaphor. You can see he and I will talk until the sun comes up about shit like this. But as a metaphor, reign of terror. Oh, that I learned. Oh, okay. Well, that was just that cartoon I watched. Now I understand it. It's like they think that the next generation is going to be locked into toddler mode for the rest of eternity. Part of it's because they're locked into toddler mode for the rest of eternity. But and then I told Davis interjected and I lost the other thing I was going to say. So finish your thought.
All right.
Crystal.
I remembered. Okay. I'm sorry. I have to get in there with this. You'll love it.
Okay.
I actually read an article recently. A little while ago. I can't remember who it was by, but it was talking about how the parents need to stop telling their child what sex it is. And like we need to raise children asexual, to have no gender, or rather whatever. Don't tell them you're a boy or a girl or anything. Don't tell them. Don't let them find out. Let them decide on their own. And they said people, they said, based on, I don't know what study they thought they were getting this from or what, but they said children who grow up knowing what gender they are more likely to commit suicide.
Oh
quite
my
the
gosh.
opposite, actually.
That's a load of shit.
Except
No, it's probably, the study probably said that transgendered children who are told that they are a girl when they feel like a boy
yes.
to commit suicide. That's probably the study.
Social justice warriors have a penchant for misinterpreting the data to fit whatever they want to get across.
Oh God.
Okay.
All right,
I'm gonna.
Crystal, you had things to say. Go on.
Oh yeah, I find it really disgusting. First of all, the kid is 2. All right, come on, seriously, it's probably still playing with his poop. Second of all, I have a daughter, and she hears what I say, but she asked me one day, she goes, "Mommy, what's a feminist?" I'm like, "We'll talk about that when you get older." I would not. She's 6. You don't start telling kids about what they should. And first of all, I would never tell my kid at any age what she should think. She's her own person. She can create her own ideas. Feminists want to brainwash children. They want to brainwash them. They want to strip them of identity, and they want to brainwash them so they don't have to deal with their own personal emotions because they lived in a paranoid fantasy of rape, kill, rape because I have a vagina. So it's really, really, these people are twisted, and they're being supported, and I don't understand how society is missing that they are supporting these. To me, that's abusive. How are you a 2-year-old? And then of course she's playing victimhood as a parent. She's playing victim to a freaking television. Come on, you don't have to sit your kid in front of a TV.
The whole reason you give your kid an identity, you're growing up. It's like, son, you're an Aurini, and you're going to act like an Aurini. You give them an identity, a rock to cling to, so that when the slings and arrows of the outside world come at them, they can survive it. They have an identity to cling to. They need that. Instead, we're raising an entire generation with no definition of who they are or what they mean, and so they get into
ground.
Say again?
No tether to the ground. They have no tether to the ground.
Yes,
they're going to be the next lost generation, but they'll be lost for an entirely different reason.
They get to university, they start sucking up every ideology that comes along, they suck up any drug that comes along, they start engaging in, they just lose themselves in the party culture, and then they're broken. They need the states to support them, and so they want more intrusive, observation constantly. Nowadays, we're treating university kids like they're 14 years old. We're treating them like it's a summer camp with the number of rules that we have in dorms.
Yeah. Yeah, they're not capable of making their own decisions. They're not capable of thinking for themselves. They're taking care of themselves or anything according to the university. Next thing you know, they'll be wandering around university in little plastic bubbles because the education departments will be afraid to let them actually attend class and be there.
Not exactly, okay? Not exactly, because it used to be that dormitories, right, that living on college, the college was acting in loco parentis, right? It was considered to be your parent, and they were able to enforce rules and codes of conduct and codes of behavior, right? They were able to say, you're not allowed to drink. You're not allowed to have a man in your room after 8 at night. You're not allowed to be out after 11 at night. You're not allowed to do this, that, and the other, right? All of that went out the window in the 70s and 80s, right?
At most places.
Yeah, in most universities. Now what they do, they refuse to enforce any standards of conduct until something bad happens.
It's a narco-tyranny.
And somebody gets booted out of university because a woman regretted sex the next morning.
It's a narco-tyranny. It's the worst of both systems.
Yes.
Where instead, we used to have a helping hand that we're going to give you more and more freedom as you grow up. And you go to college, there's some rules, but we're also going to expect you to behave like an adult. Otherwise, we hit you with a stick. Whereas now there's no drinking in your dorm rooms, but you can walk across the street, get 3 sheets to the wind, and, collect a whole bunch of it or whatever, you can go absolutely nuts and shit your pants across the street at the bar, but absolutely no drinking in your room like a civilized human being. You're only allowed to get drunk amongst fellow 18-year-olds or 21-year-olds, whatever. You don't get to drink with your parents.
Well, I think one of the reasons you might not want kids drinking in the dorms is just so they don't do that douchebag thing where they line their rooms with every beer bottle they've ever drunk from, on the shelf above the bed and everything.
Oh, you don't even want to see what my dining room looks like.
Well, I heard an interesting thing about all this, and if they were to sit there and legalize drinking a little bit younger, I mean, because it would be legal, that would take a lot of the woo, this is illegal kind of thing. You're like, I'm having fun, I'm doing things that are wrong kind of aspects to it.
Exactly.
Right.
Actually, that's a thing. That's a thing that I think is causing a lot of the problems with youth in the United States today. Is the teetotaling attitude that we have as American citizens. For the most part, it's like we have this almost puritanical attitude towards alcohol. Now, I'm not going to endorse drug use here. Be aware. I think drug use, for the most part, is stupid. And it depends on the drug. I have nothing against pot. I'm not going to try it because I'm allergic to so many things. I can just see that emergency room visit. I'm having an allergy attack because of something I ingested. Oh, well, what did you ingest? I can't tell you. That just wouldn't work very well. So, yeah. But as far as if people are going to do things they're going to do, and mystifying it and making it seem like it's something special does nothing but increase the number of kids who are going to experiment with it during their stupid years. Yeah. And
I just don't understand. How can you be old enough to die for your country and not old enough to drink a beer?
How is that
fucking possible?
Yeah, because politicians are stupid.
And I want to say, I so fucking agree. That's exactly what I said the night I got turned away at the door at a Dream Theater concert because I was 18 and they made it 21 and up because there was going to be a cigarette promo that night. And it's like, you know what? If I said that right there, if I can die for my country, I can fucking stand in a room with people that are smoking and watch my favorite band play.
Good grief, it's legal to sell cigarettes to 18-year-olds.
I know!
Exactly.
That's ridiculous.
Oh,
gosh. And that's Karen, another one I wouldn't encourage anybody to start, but people have the right to do it.
Karen, what you said about the Army. When I first joined up, halfway through basic training, they let you go to the mess and drink. And if you were drunk the next day, you were running with everybody else until you puked.
Yep.
Advanced 5 years, they weren't letting corporals on advanced courses drink anymore because, well, what if somebody gets drunk and they don't show up on time? Then you make them mark time. You hit them with a stick is what you do. And that way, in a situation where it actually matters, they won't make that mistake.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. And moving on to the next, the next topic. This is, okay, I don't know how familiar you guys are with the insanity that's going on the Owen network, Oprah's network. I personally don't watch it if I can avoid if I can avoid it.
Every day.
Oh.
I need my dose of O.
Oh gosh, yeah. Okay, anyway, life
Is this
coach...
the Raven Simone thing? The Raven Simone?
No. Oh,
okay.
Just wait for it.
Okay.
Life coach shames father of 34 children. The Owen Network hosts a myriad of questionable shows with so-called experts to help people improve their lives. On a recent episode of Lilana Fix My Life, a life coach shames a man for fathering for 34 children and not being there for them. Instead of holding all parties accountable for the production of this many children, the life coach decides to shame the father for not staying with one woman with the idea in mind that women can't walk away from pregnancy. Never mind that women have every birth control option available to them and that it was ultimately their decision to become single mothers. Nope, let's all push it on the man because that pulls in the ratings. Every person involved enabled the creation of these children. In fact, when they did interview the 17 women involved, every one of them had issues that were just as bad as his. But will there be a show like this where Lilana tells a woman with 10 plus kids that she shouldn't be trying to find herself by sleeping with a ton of men? I wouldn't hold my breath.
Yeah, it's like these people are like, I don't want to insult autistic people because autistic people are actually wonderful human beings, but it's like they're autistic or something. You know, like if you have 37 women? Well, maybe it was 24 women.
No, it was 17 women.
Okay, 17. So he had some repeat
And
jobs. So he was trying. He was trying. You know, like these 17 women, you know, so we have 17 women, one guy, 16 other guys that, you know, let's say, for sake of argument, those 16 other guys would have stuck around. They would have been fathers. They would have done what they could. But they weren't a bad boy. They weren't exciting. They weren't interesting. All those 17 women chose this one guy. Like, this is a statistical issue. When you promote, when you try and destroy the family, and when you promote casual sex and irresponsibility, this is what you get.
Well, but here's the thing too. You can guarantee that every one of those 17 women knew of all of the others' existence. They knew.
Yeah.
They knew he already had X number of kids by X number of women, right? You know, they knew that when they decided to hump him without being on the pill or without insisting on a condom, right? I mean, this is the insane thing. And these people who are judging this guy, and yeah, he's irresponsible. He's extremely irresponsible. But the people who are laying every single ounce of blame on him, they're being perfectly normal, because normal people in our society have no ability to see women's agency. They have no ability to perceive women as people who have choices, who have free choices, free unencumbered choices, who have reasons of their own, right? Not reasons that are imposed on them from outside, from externally, right? She got herself pregnant. He didn't get her pregnant. She got herself pregnant, right? She had way more control over her fertility and whether a pregnancy would occur than any guy does. Right? If she got pregnant, that was her choice. If she had the child, that was her choice. If she kept the child, also her choice.
Right. And this is the problem, is in our society, like, I don't believe in the deadbeat dad thing. I'm a single mother, and I've raised my child on my own without the father. Now, when I hear of this, it really pisses me off, because I made the choice, you know, regardless of what happened after, I made the choice that, yes, I was going to take care of that child. And so when I hear this victim motherhood crap, it's nonsense. And, oh, the deadbeat dad, no. Okay, there was two people who created a person. Okay, maybe it didn't happen ideally, whatever, fucking cares. The bottom line is there's a child there. And if you are the mother, that is your responsibility. If you are playing victim to your motherhood, that is awful. And the child feels that. I mean, children can feel and see. They watch everything. They feel everything. They hear everything. If they see you acting as if they are a burden, how are these children supposed to feel? And on top of that, I watched the clip, and it is just horrific, and it was complete shaming of this guy. And the woman who was doing it, she was projecting. She was a single mother who never got her. I don't even know how long she held onto this crap for, but she was projecting all of her upset, all of her pain onto these guys. You know what? Process your crap. Process your emotions. If you're upset, fine, get through it. You know, they pan through the audience of all these single mothers crying. Fucking move through it. Jesus Christ. How long are you going to hold on to this shit? You know?
It's infantilization of the women. Women can never be held responsible for their decision. They're just silly little children.
But it's bullshit. You cannot be victim to motherhood. It's not possible.
Well,
Men don't have the choices that women do.
Not in this day and age.
They don't.
It's possible because motherhood. Okay, there is a such thing as an accidental pregnancy. Okay, now, personally, I think that true accidental pregnancies, are extremely rare, right? They are not the every other day occurrence that a lot of women would like us to believe, right?
Right.
Okay, accidental pregnancies occur. There is no such thing as an accidental motherhood. There is no such thing as an accidental birth.
Right.
I take issue with the word accident in that. Unless you slipped on the ground and fell on his dick and then had trouble getting back up, it's an unintentional pregnancy, not an accidental one.
Oh, it's not.
Unless you accidentally had sex.
Unless you're watching that crazy show,
or you didn't know how babies are made, and you didn't know that pregnancy sometimes happens, even with measures in place to prevent it. It's an unintended. That's my nitpick for the day. Unintended versus accidental.
Okay,
I'm pretty sure he didn't spend 6 months courting them and promising he was going to marry them, and that claiming to own a large estate in upstate New York.
Okay,
I'm pretty sure that wasn't how he got.
Actually, he's actually pretty successful though, and from what I understand, he's actually paying all of his child support payments, all of them, to 17 women, and he's a really successful video producer. Or music producer.
One, and they do know all of each. They did know each other.
Yeah,
all of these women
knew each other.
All of these,
all of them.
There was an episode of Law and Order SVU where they had that happen, and they tried to play it off. They tried to coin the term reproductive violence for this really rich guy. Except he'd poke holes in condoms and then talk the women out of having abortions. And then the cops found out that he had like 17 kids or something. And there's this big shaming scene in the police department. It's like, what can we arrest him for? We can't arrest him for anything. But he was wrong. Yeah, sure thing, iced tea.
Okay.
They're always trying to promote these new imaginative sex crimes on Bloody Show.
Okay, I will grant you. I will grant you that behavior is unethical. That behavior is as unethical as a woman lying about being on the pill and getting herself pregnant. Right?
Oh, what this guy was doing, yeah.
It's douchebag behavior, right? But I would hazard a guess that the incidences of men poking holes in condoms so that they can sign up for $100,000 baby mortgages left, right, and center, right, are fewer and far between, compared to women who are willing to lie about being on the pill.
That's why we need to preemptively ban the male pill, because guys are going to lie to their girlfriends about being on the male birth control pill.
Yeah, so what? Let them lie. You have your own fucking pill.
That's what CBC told me.
That's where this is where an example where Davis and I would disagree. I mean, I don't think prohibition of that would solve anything, but yeah, I mean, you're going to have you are going to run into people who are running a con game on the other end as well.
Oh no, I was quoting the CBC. I don't actually know that.
There are pregnant women. There are pregnant women who sell their pregnancy tests.
Yeah,
they sell their pregnancy tests. And they say, "Oh, make him yours forever." They actually do this. I saw there was a clip.
Jesus fucking Christ!
Well, this also gets used for an abortion scam.
She was selling pregnancy tests.
Yeah.
She was selling pregnancy tests for $30 a pop, and she said, "Oh, I need to get something. I don't know, for her kids." So she's like, "Make him yours forever." Like, this is the shit that's out there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That and I need $800 for an abortion. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's absolutely it's mind-boggling that women get away with this. This guy, right, who every single woman in question, all 17 of them consented to sex with him. All 17 of them had every measure you could possibly imagine, every measure at their disposal to prevent themselves from becoming pregnant, right? After they became pregnant, they had every choice as to whether they were going to become mothers, right? Whether they were going to bring the pregnancy to term, whether they were going to take responsibility for the child after it was born, right? All of these women had all of the choice. This dude, all he did was get his dick wet. That's all he
Oh God!
right?
Yeah, they have all
that
those
and
all those
trust
choices,
him.
and they deliberately choose to put themselves in a bad situation. Say he
Well, and the
wasn't
thing
able to
is-
support all those kids, if he wasn't able to take care of all those families,
You know,
and he can't
Do it-
be
do it.
there for all those families.
just
There's only
blown
one of
away.
him. That just
and
makes them bad mothers.
Do it.
But
We
But
need
the
is like.
thing is,
All right,
hey,
all right, everybody,
shit
everybody,
happens.
Guys!
Go
I
ahead,
just-
Crystal.
Calm
Let Crystal
down.
I
talk.
will clear the courtroom.
All right.
The
Let Crystal
thing is,
talk.
shit happens. I don't think, yeah, not everything comes perfectly picket fence the way everything, people say is supposed to be. So fucking what? The thing is, okay, it came out this way, then fucking do it and deal with it and work your ass off and do the best you can and be a mother. Be a mother. Don't sit there and be victim to the fact that you have a child. How could you not see and have some gratitude to the father? Because now you have this amazing person in your life, unless you don't value your children. Because that's the only way. How could you not value your children and then have gratitude for the person who helped bring that person in your life? So
I was just
there's
gonna say-
something not
Excellent,
connecting
Crystal.
here with these so-called mothers, and it pisses me off because that's not
Well,
motherhood to me.
All right.
What
I
we
have
need-
to have to put an elbow in here because we're gonna move into the interview portion of the show. 'Cause
Yay!
we got to get to the main topic because we got an hour left and gotta kick some ass.
Now that you got me all fucking riled up, fine then.
All right, let me get my last one in. That whole situation be solved if we as a society invented some sort of legal contract where before a woman chose to sleep with a man, she said, all right, you have to sign this contract saying you're going to provide for me and take care of my children and live with me and comfort me into my old age, and then we'll have sex. We need to get something like that.
I know, it's
marriage.
so
Yeah.
strange.
Or at least not complain when men aren't honoring, or women aren't, well, men in this case, aren't honoring a contract that doesn't exist.
And then have this weird nonsensical debate about gay people doing that.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay, all right. Way off topic.
We actually got to talk a bit about the Sarkeesian effect, and could you give the viewers at home, or not viewers, the listeners at home, a bit of background that you guys have, because I think that a lot of confusion with some of the people online where they don't know whether they can get behind you or not is they're not really familiar with your background and what you guys work in, what fields you've been in, and things like that. So.
Well, Davis and I, we're both YouTube bloggers. We both are. Neither one of us are obviously on the PewDiePie level, but we do have kind of our own cult. I don't want to say cult following. We do have our own underground following, if you will. And Davis and I have both talked about the issue of Anita Sarkeesian. I've become me and along with like Sargon of Akkad and a few others, we've become like the go-to people about this issue with Anita and everything. And Davis and I were working on a project together called Lust in the Time of Heartache. There's a movie Davis was making, and I was doing the soundtrack. And I
Available
had this
online. Like, comment, and
yes,
subscribe.
it is. Yes, and and we were talking one night, and I said, I have this idea that because the issue was we as bloggers, we cannot shout loud enough to be heard in all of this. It doesn't matter how many videos we do. It doesn't matter what we say in that regard, anything like that.
It doesn't matter how many views we have. Look at Thunderfoot. That guy is crazy popular. He's done a dozen videos tearing Anita a new one, demonstrating specific lies, specific hypocrisy, specific inconsistencies that should completely disqualify her for any sort of philosophical debate. Millions of views, not a thing. She's consulting at video game companies.
Yeah, and we go, and so we were talking about this. I put it to him. I said, "Well, hey man, we could do a movie, a documentary about all of this, and we do make it a really good documentary, especially because having been involved in this, I'm sitting on a lot of information that I can't just like divulge. So I was thinking, how can we put all of this out there in a way that it'll really hammer the point home? And I said, let's make this documentary. And then finally, just by default, it becomes a legitimate source. It goes on IMDb. It goes on Wikipedia. It's referenced in the media all over this. finally we're going to have something set up, something put together that is this source of legitimate criticism for Anita Sarkeesian. But we don't want it to just be Anita Sarkeesian. That's why we're calling it the Sarkeesian effect, because which is a title we might have gotten from a certain internet talk show anyway. But that's why we're calling it the Sarkeesian effect, is because it's everything that's happened in the last 2 years since her whole thing came out, and how this has been completely dominated by social justice warriors. And so we're going to be going into all the different facets of that, and we have people who are very, very excited to speak out about this. And a lot of there's a lot of very sensitive information we're dealing with and everything. And so the ball's been rolling. We're at about $8,500 now. I mean, 8,500. Yeah, 8,500. Bad at math. Anyway, $8,500 a month right now to make this. We need to get up to 15,000 a month, ideally. But anyway, and this, by the way, this is one of those pet peeves of mine, that the same douchebags that say you should never question Anita Sarkeesian for getting 160 grand have a problem with us asking for 15. And so there's this one dipshit, who was it, Davis, Bewildered Ape, was trying to talk all this shit about us, saying that we're not actually doing a production, the money's not going to any kind of production. And to him, I say, I've got better things to do than deal with him, but he better be ready to make like Jay-Z and back that thing up, because he is spouting some seriously slanderous shit right there.
But actionable stuff.
Can you talk a bit about that production, about what you guys are going to be doing? I mean, what this money is going towards? Because I think the more the people know, the more they're going to be willing to want to really back this film. Because from what I understand, I mean, I'm not going to sit there and divulge anything, but from what you've told me, I need to see this film made. I really, yes. I really do, and I know that most people, because it's some of this is shrouded in mystery, they need to know some of what's going on, at least a little bit.
Well, I want to say,
let's start from the strategic angle. One misunderstanding that a lot of our audience had was they thought we were just going to be making an hour-and-a-half long video arguing with Sarkeesian. That won't accomplish anything. That's not why you make a documentary. And a good analogy with you ladies in the men's rights movement, if somebody came up to you and asked, what's wrong with feminism? And you started trying to explain like the systemic control they have over media, over both political parties, over the university institutions, over the legal proceedings, etc., etc. It is so hard to explain that in quickly. Without sounding like you're a conspiracy theorist, even though you've got all of this documented. It's not, when you can document these connections, it's not a conspiracy theory.
Right.
And what we're putting together, it's not, you don't make a coherent argument in a documentary. That's not what they're for. You write a book if that's what you're going to do. For this, it's a rhetorical piece where we're going to be painting the picture for people that don't know what Gamergate is, don't know what video games are, don't know any of this stuff. And these people say, why should I care about some girl on YouTube that makes feminist frequency videos? Why should I care about some game developer sleeping her way into getting her game published? Why? Like, okay, yeah, there's a little bit of BS there, but it doesn't really affect me. Well, yeah, it does. This is a big thing, and we are going to be painting that picture with this film. That's why it needs to be a film pulling this all together, so you don't have to be a bloody PhD expert just to figure out who works for whom.
Yeah.
Well, and building on that, the example that I like to use and is the Michael Moore movie Bowling for Columbine, for example, which I know, don't get me wrong, there's tons of factual errors in that movie. I'm not denying that. We're going to be 100% factual in what we do. But in terms of the structure, he does do a really good movie in the idea of taking the issue of the Columbine shooting and using that to frame a larger discussion about gun violence. And so that's essentially what we're doing with Anita Sarkeesian. We are taking her, we're going to be dealing with her and all of her bullshit, but we're going to be using it to frame a larger discussion about social justice, the social justice warriors, and all of that, and what's happened in video games. And so that
by following Anita's story, we follow everybody's story.
Exactly.
You know, and that's exactly by following the Columbine story. Michael Moore, you know, again, I don't like Michael Moore. I don't agree with him, but he's an amazing documentary maker. By following the Columbine thing, he follows the whole thing about, like, his basic thesis being that Americans are afraid all the time. That's why they buy a lot of guns. Yeah. And so that's what we're doing.
One of the things most people don't know about me is I'm a total documentary nutcase. I'm not nutcase. I'm a total documentary nut. I love documentaries so much. I'll go out of my way to watch them, and that's one of the reasons it's not all the reason why I'm doing this, but anyway, one of the things that I do want us to discuss is, can you tell us a bit about the controversy that's been going on around this documentary? I know there was a bit of the issue with Patreon, and some of the people were questioning some of your views, okay. Davis. And
first of all, and I'll let Davis speak to his views, but when we launched this, the day we launched it, within a few hours of it going up, Samantha Allen, who's a prominent SJW, was launching a campaign to have it shut down. And then the first round of articles started going up, slamming it, and we now know, of course, that these people are do these coordinated, the SJW journalists do these coordinated email article attacks and everything. The articles started going up, all of that. So all of this controversy was raging. We didn't know just how deep it was going, though, until last week when there was this big controversy. We were, at the beginning of the month, we were supposed to get the first payout from Patreon, which is now, was like, several $1,000s. And so the day we put in for that request for the money, there was this mass uprising on Twitter of people demanding to Patreon, don't give them the money, pull the project, stop it, all of this stuff. And Jim Conti, it's Jim, right, Davis? It was Jim is his name?
I don't think it's Jim. I don't even remember.
Okay.
I'm going to look that up.
Conte. Okay. Mr. Conte, the COO over at Patreon, posted a thing on his Twitter saying we're thinking of, we're talking about this issue. We're going to have a public discussion about whether or not to pull this. He says, this is a very serious issue. We don't take pulling a project lightly and all of this. And to give you an example of how big of a deal this was, one of the people urging him to pull the funding was the guy, was it Andy Bayos, the guy who is, he works for Kickstarter. He backs Anita on Kickstarter. He is also the organizer of the XOXO festival, where she was just the star attraction. He's urging him to pull it. Anyway, so I tweet to him and I say, please don't pull the project until you've talked to my partner and myself. And so he sends me his secretary's contact info, and we set up an appointment. We sit down that afternoon, talk to him on the phone. He was literally like dumbfounded by it. He said we actually have no mechanism in place, no procedure in place for how to deal with something like this. We've never had a protest to have a campaign shut down before. And he said, Davis, correct me if I'm wrong, but he said the first day of our project, they got more than 150 emails trying to shut it down. And then they've gotten just more and more ever since then. And just this massive emails of people trying to get this movie shut down. And
it's Jack Conti, by the way. And Conti. This is a guy that started up Patreon because he was trying to create he was trying to allow the creation of art without interference from censors. And he was under the impression, and he's right to a degree, he was expecting to get, he was going to publish or allow to be published the sort of stuff that you'd get the religious right trying to shut down. You can't say that. That's vulgar, whatever. And he's like, no, if it's good art, let it be. And so he never expected to get an organization I don't know what you want to call them, university liberals, these
social justice warriors, SJWs.
Yeah, he never realized that these people are the new censors that are trying to shut down anything they disagree with. And it's the same sort of faux moral outrage, except instead of it being outrage over a teenager drinking in Catcher in the Rye, it's outrage over anything that upsets their narrative.
Yeah, exactly.
And kudos to the guy for standing by his principles when he was under a lot of pressure. The dude's a musician. He's not, he's you can see it in his face. He's a really gentle, I'd say spiritual kind of guy. He loves music. He loves creating things of beauty. And all of a sudden he's getting screamed at that we're hateful bigots. And he's the most non-hateful bigot person in the world. He wouldn't want to associate with hateful bigots. And yet he stood by his principles in the face of all of that pressure.
Yeah. And that's and kudos to him. I mean, serious kudos to him. And I think Davis and I were both thinking that, or both realized that, I think he was kind of expecting, talking to us, from what he'd been told, it seemed like he was kind of expecting to be talking to a couple of little, mischievous gremlins. Yeah, like a couple of little gremlins or something. And we actually turned out, no, we're actually very, pleasant. We actually do know what we're doing. And we explained to him at length the project, and then also the negative press. I think he also understands. I don't want to put words in his mouth, obviously, but the tremendous pressure that we've been under from these people, and this is where you draw a line in the sand between us and Anita. And what did Anita get? She got gets supposedly is people saying mean things to her on the internet. That's what it comes down to. These little trolls out in Trollville say trollish things to her, and that's horrible. Okay, the difference is now you have our documentary comes out, and the opposition that we're dealing with is people very high up, journalists, very influential people. There was a guy that writes for The Guardian was tweeting this really vicious shit to me about, if this movie comes out, you're going to be in court for the next 5 years. You're going to go bankrupt and that kind of thing. And what kind of balls do you have to have when you're in that position and you're attacking people on Twitter publicly that way? And so this is what we're dealing with. Death and rape threats, whoopty shit, whatever. We're dealing with people who are threatening to do what they have the capacity to actually do. You know what I mean? They're whatever bizarre, abstract, stupid shit Anita's getting. We're dealing with people that are seriously trying to interfere. And I can tell you, one of the things, the whole email leak, there was the whole email leak about Game Journals Pros. One of the things that was discussed in that email leak was our project, was the Sarkeesian effect. And there was a question when that came out of how do we know that this is a legit thing? How do we know this leak isn't a hoax? Well, one of the people was Garrett from Pace Magazine, who's in Game Journals Pros. And he talked about, he said, oh, yeah, I remember Jordan Owen. He tried to write an article. He offered to write an article for Pace about a year ago, which was true. And I had not told anybody else about that. So it would have to be the actual Garrett that knew that. And so basically, I mean, this is the level of people trying to control the discourse, control what gets out there. And,
you know what, too? I think these people, a big part of the reason that they were so frightened by all of this, a couple of jerk-offs from the internet filming a documentary, who should care about that? The reason is, and this kind of goes in, that I don't want to talk about too much of what we're doing with this film, but there is something to expose. These people know there is something to expose. And all it takes is two jackasses with a video camera to actually expose this stuff. We're already seeing a lot of it being released by Gamergate, which is, of course, not an official source. It's just Twitter. It's just the internet. But there's even more to just how deep this rabbit hole goes that we have found, or we are on the verge of finding proof of. It's interesting.
One of the things that they're scared of, and we had actually a feminist on the men's rights Reddit just recently she posted a very, very smart criticism of feminism's dialect, right? Their special language, right? The redefining of language, so that sexism is something that can only happen to women, and it's particularly perpetrated by men, things like that. And that once you accept their dialect, once you accept their definitions, there's no way to win a debate.
Yeah.
And she thought that the problem was the dialect itself. The problem is not the dialect. The dialect is a shield that they have constructed in order to guard their extremely vulnerable ideology, an ideology that they cling to. And this goes for feminists, social justice warriors, cultural Marxists, all of those people that use the kind of Marxist class conflict theory model, right, to describe society. The dialect is not the cause. The dialect is not the cause of there being no meaningful dialogue. The dialect is there to prevent meaningful dialogue. They constructed it in order to do that, right?
You realize that 1984's Newspeak was not just something Orwell made up in his mind. It was something that he was reporting on, and that's exactly it. It's saying
we're getting some questions, and
one of the things that they're terrified of. Just let me finish. One of the things that they're terrified of is that feminism and social justice warriorism is a minority position. It is not a majority position. It is a minority position. It is 25% of women identify as feminists and fewer men.
Yeah.
Right? That is a minority. A small minority of people identify as feminists, and yet somehow they have kind of gone through the long march through the long, slow march through the institutions. They've taken, and it's not a long, slow march of politicians. It's a long, slow march of lobbyists, right? Yeah. Because lobbyists don't get held accountable. Politicians get held accountable, right? And they have taken over so many institutions. All of the formal ones are done. You have politics, you have the media, you have social work, you have police policy, you have judicial policy, you have criminal policy, you have all of this, everything that's formal, everything that's formally institutionalized is already theirs, right?
Yeah, folks, read Thomas Ball's manifesto, hosted at A Voice for Men.
Yeah, what do they have left?
There's two sets of laws, the laws you know about and the books of policies and procedures that are the true laws.
The second set of books. But now they're taking over all of the informal institutions, and they're doing them one by one, and they're picking them off, and they are using their clout in the formal institutions, whether it's Stephanie Guthrie having a man charged with criminal harassment for criticizing her own harassment of another individual over Twitter, right? Like they engage these formalized mechanisms, like trying to pressure the CEO of Patreon, right, to shut down your project. They've taken over so much of those formalized institutions that now they can use those formalized institutions and the clout they have there in order to bully everybody else who, gaming's just a hobby. It's not a job for gamers. It's a hobby. It's their love. It's their passion. It's what they do in their spare time, right? And it's what they spend money on, right? And these feminists want to take over that too, because it's one of the final things that hasn't been completely freaking assimilated yet. Assimilated. I'm going to use that word. It's the fucking Borg. Assimilated.
Yeah. Let's go to Stephanie Guthrie for a moment. Why is she allying herself with
Karen, let Davis talk.
Oh,
Yes.
they're saying, why is Stephanie Guthrie allying herself with the religious right when feminism is so strongly opposed to fundamentalist Christianity?
Because it's politically and socially and economically expedient.
1984
Feminists
is
are
all
political
about power.
sluts.
It's not about making sense or being efficient. It's all about power.
Well, it's not about principles. I mean, that's the thing. That's the real thing. That's why you see radical feminists and right-wing fundamentalist Christians in bed together trying to ban porn, right?
Well, yeah, that's but we probably should actually ask a question.
Yeah. I mean, I have more questions, but I mean, we'll go. This actually probably ties into it. It says, "Can the guys comment on DIGRA?"
Could you give me before we go further? Could you explain the acronym for those of us who don't necessarily know it?
Digital Games Research Association, I think it is.
Yep.
Yes. Yeah. Go ahead, Davis.
You know what? No, you take this one, Jordan.
Okay. DIGRA, and I'm going to sound like a bit of a buffoon because I blanked on what the abbreviation means because I just think of it as DIGRA. But anyway, DIGRA is one of these, simply put, is this sort of way station between video games and academia. One of these is trying to evaluate it from this academic standpoint, and it has been completely overrun by social justice warriors, and it is actually the head of DIGRA is a member of something called the Fembot Collective, which is a organization of feminists who write self-referencing studies that they call peer-reviewed because they've been through the Fembot Collective has given them their stamp of approval. And why when the creation science groups say they have a peer-reviewed article and it's just their own people that have peer-reviewed it, we throw it out the window, but for some reason we listen to these people. But anyway, so they have their self-involved, self-important organization called the Fembot Collective, and the article, there's an article that was written by a woman that teaches at Temple University that is considered the academic backbone of this anti-gamer crusade that the social justice warriors are on. It is the academic source that was referenced in most of the articles that came out announcing the death of gamers. So this is something that these people, DIGRA is intimately connected to the people and run by the people who cooked up this bullshit about gamers being dead or dead gamers, all this. And what it ultimately comes down to, and what they talked about in the minutes of some of their meetings, and Sargon actually did a video on this recently, but what they talked about in the minutes of some of their meetings is basically how can we use this as a means of attacking video games as a capitalist industry. And what it ultimately comes down to is that's one of the problems with feminism is essentially an outgrowth of Marxism. So they're trying to use gender relations as a means of attacking a capitalist institution, which is the video games industry. So, I mean, DIGRA, that's where DIGRA stands. And again, Davis and I are always on the balance point of not saying too much. But DIGRA and a couple of other similar organizations, play into this big time. And we find time and again, what we find is that if you try to make a flow chart of this, it doesn't become a square with one square with everything pointing out from it. It becomes a circle. And so all of this stuff keeps falling back on itself. So you got John and Anita and their group, and they're connected to Silver String Media. Silver String Media is connected to DIGRA. DIGRA is connected to the Fembot Collective. The Fembot Collective is connected to the Death of Gamers thing. The Death of Gamers thing is connected to all of these news sources that are pushing the idea, all of which are connected to John and Anita. And it's this big circle, and there's other points along the way, obviously, but it just keeps becoming a circle.
Jordan, just take off that tinfoil hat. Oh my god.
Well, see, this is the thing. It's not a conspiracy if it's fucking. It's
not a conspiracy theory if there's an actual conspiracy.
Conspiracy, yeah.
Yeah, I wanted to. If there's room, I wanted to actually point something out. I was reading some of the stuff. I think it may have come from Digra. They were talking about how academics had to appeal to them, games had to appeal to them as academics because of somehow there will be a lucrative market in forcing students to buy their games. I'm like, I'm sorry, but that would be maybe a couple hundred units per institution. Yeah. Nobody's going to care.
It's just like Zoe Quinn's game is the best game in the universe, even though it only moved like 500,000 copies for free.
For free,
500,000?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how many it moved, but
500,000 is pretty significant.
The gist of it is for free.
Yeah, and most of the people that played it because they knew it was going to be terrible.
Yeah.
Like, you should go on, if you go on Steam and read the reviews, I looked at it and it's got like 1,500 negative reviews and 1,500 positive reviews, and I thought, well, who's saying anything positive? Go read the positive reviews, and it's all sarcastic. It's the funniest thing. One guy said, "I'm giving this game 5 burgers and fries out of 10." You know.
Okay, I actually recently I saw a photo. We're not sure that it's Photoshop, but I know there's at least part of this photo that isn't Photoshop. It's a picture of Zoe Quinn, who now has at some point got a trophy that says that she was responsible for driving Gamergate out of 4chan, and she's wearing a necklace that is like the Illuminati symbol, just to fuck with people. Yeah,
she might as well at this point. But I mean, yeah, and Zoe Quinn is going to factor into this big time as well, obviously. And that was actually when the whole news was breaking about, the whole burgers and fries controversy was breaking. That was when we were actually going to wait a couple of weeks and launch the project, announce the project on September 4th, because was going to be my birthday. But I told Davis, I said,
the iron is hot.
Yeah, we got to strike when the iron is hot. We got to get this thing going now. And that was actually one thing. That was one reason why people were saying our first announcement video looked kind of rushed and everything, because it was rushed. We were trying to do something we could get out there ASAP just to announce the thing. And so we started, that was what was the catalyst for getting this going. And I said I had been doing videos building up to the announcement, alluding to what we had in mind. And like the first one had the scene from Network from, I'm as mad as hell and I'm not going to take this anymore, and that kind of thing. And I finally, in the last pitch video before we announced it, I said, look, people, we have this thing that keeps happening where feminist young woman does something that pisses a whole lot of people off, though a whole lot of people get mad about it, and that woman rides the gravy train to fame and fortune within the gaming tech industry. Don't you think this keeps happening over and over and over again? Don't you think it's a little obvious? Don't you think it's a little obvious that there's something behind it? And
let's put it this way. Imagine if Michael Moore had made Bowling for Columbine, but there was the NRA, for instance, was receiving huge amounts of government funding to exist, and the militias were actively promoting kids to go shoot up schools, and that there was a bunch of newspapers covering up this information. Imagine that Michael Moore movie.
Well, let's say, imagine, no, let me do it better, actually. Imagine the Michael Moore movie. If Michael Moore uncovered that there was this, there were people who were, it's like the South Park episode where they're opposed to smoking. They're trying to oppose smoking, so they're actively killing kids to make it look like they're dying from smoking cigarettes. It'd be like that. Imagine if it turned out there was a gun control lobby that was orchestrating school shootings. I mean, it would be something like that.
Yeah. Yeah,
I have a question though, and
kind of exactly the way.
I have a question, and I can't not ask this question because I know it was a concern in at least some of the comments. Why do they think you're a racist, Davis?
You know what? There's a great quote. Can I read you a quote from Heinlein about that? It's about a college professor that was caught sleeping with one of his students and he got shipped off to a labor colony as a result. And
actually, just before you begin, could whoever's got the siren mute? Thank you.
Sorry, that's actually me. I live downtown.
My ride's here.
So the quote is, yeah, my ride's here. The social justice warriors contacted the Calgary police. So he asked him, why did he get sent to a labor colony for this? Was he some sort of radical? And he says, heavens no, I was a rock-bound conservative. But I had an unfortunate tendency to express conservative principles in realistic rather than allegorical language. What it boils down to is that I speak frankly about things, and race is one of those things. If somebody comes from Jamaica, they're going to have a different experience than me. They're going to have different cultural assumptions. They are going to be different people. And I actually like that sort of diversity, But what's happened is that race has become such a trigger word for people. They've been taught that being anti-racist is the greatest thing in the world. Oh, God, those bloody fire trucks. That as soon as anybody even mentions that races are different, it triggers something in their brain. It's a hate speech term. It's bad thing. And so
I'm curious. I'm curious what they would say to, for example, I guess Native Americans, because they also believe that the races are different and have different types of wisdom, different types of things to teach, to bring to the table to teach others. So, the reality is, I once said this in a class where I think I got accused of a similar attitude as you did. I don't think they were quite as blunt about it, but I said if the races are all the same, then we have nothing to teach each other.
Yeah, exactly.
And I'm of the opinion, based upon some evidence, I could be swayed from it, but I'm of the opinion that some of these differences that you see between the races are biological in nature and not just cultural. But I could be wrong about that, and you know what? Really doesn't matter. Even if we are only different culturally, we are still different, and that's interesting. That's cool.
What drives me crazy about people who say that the whole people who scream biotruther, whether it comes to race or whether it comes to gender, right?
Go tell that to a medical doctor. Jeez.
Well, but you look at it and you think, okay, well, so what, right? Saying in aggregate, on average, women are more sensitive than men, right? That a man has to be more sensitive than 85% of men to be as sensitive as the average woman. And a woman has to be more emotionally stable than 85% of women to be as emotionally stable as the average man, right? Okay, this is just and maybe it's biological, right? Maybe it is innate. Maybe some of it is cultural. Culture will take you in one direction or the other away from what you're born with, or toward it, more firmly toward it. But there are differences from the get-go, right? And, to actually say that this justifies discriminating against an individual.
Right.
No, it does not. It does not justify saying, you're a woman, so you don't belong. Absolutely not, right? Or you're a man, so you're a rapist. No, absolutely not. No, you look at aggregate average differences and you say, okay, so 90% of people in engineering are men. Is this discrimination, or is this about preferences, interests, and personal choices that people make, right? And if it's about those things that might be innate, then why are we pushing to force more women in and more men out of that field, isn't that just going to make people unhappy?
If you divide people up by any criteria, let's say shoe size, you define the world by people that have size 10 and less and size 11 and more, and you analyze those people, you're going to find a difference in income, a difference in sporting proclivities, so on and so forth. It doesn't mean that you group. Yeah, maybe you can find useful information from that.
Every person who has size 13 feet is going to be like great at skiing, even though it technically skis. But
another thing I just love about this too is these are the people that will constantly shout that race does not exist. Well, all right, number one, if race doesn't exist, how do you know what I'm talking about when I say a black person?
Yeah.
Everybody knows that race exists.
These are the kinds of people that...
if it doesn't exist, how can I be racist? I hate the phlogiston race.
The same kinds of people who are trying to pretend like there aren't any differences are the same kinds of people who want to pretend that there's no difference between men and women.
Right.
There are very obvious difference and biological differences between men and women, but they want to sit there and pretend that they aren't for the sake of...
For the record, Anita is on record as saying men and women are equally as strong.
Okay. Yeah, physically.
Those people that want to pretend that there are no differences between the sexes or between races or between any other sets of groups are also the same people to come rushing forward to highlight those differences as soon as it suits their purpose.
Yeah.
And that's the one thing I really wanted to say is perhaps you're getting accused of being racist, not because they specifically took issue with anything you said, but because they can use it as a tool against you much more easily than arguing with the things that you did say that they took issue with.
Oh, yeah.
You know what? The classics professors are allowed to be conservative and quote-unquote racist because they use allegory. They're just talking about the Greeks and the Romans and all of that. And they're talking about that warfare. As soon as you get to be a modern historian, suddenly you're not allowed to speak that way anymore. Suddenly you need to subscribe to the modern value assumptions of progressivism, of diversity, whatever. The SJW nonsense schizophrenia that we all believe in. If you're a classics professor, you can speak frankly about how the Greeks were inferior and that's why they lost this war. But you can't ever say that about a modern situation.
In contemporary times, no.
I mean the Greeks would, in context, that would be the Greeks were inferior because they had a low birth rate because of this cultural attribute or because of this crop died. They were, you can make that statement.
Or their government was inefficient or whatever,
So they were in an inferior position, essentially.
If I can
Sorry?
Well, I was talking about Davis's views. One thing that I was thinking about this today as well. One thing that occurred to me is, Davis is part of what's known as the alternative right, and a lot of people probably aren't totally aware of what that is. Davis could elucidate it better than me, but it's essentially people on the right who are disillusioned with the GOP as being kind of too flaccid and wishy-washy and silly, and wanting to embrace much more passionate, frank, raw, honest opinions about things from a right-wing standpoint. And one of the things people say, well, how can you align yourself with someone who sees things so different, who has such different opinions?
I get people asking me, how can I align myself with a degenerate like Jordan Owen? He's an advocate for porn.
Yeah, but the thing of it is, part of it for me is, I think a lot of people, the alternative right is a relatively unknown sphere of discussion. Whereas, like, I've known that the alternative right was a thing for like 10 years. It's like I've been, because I listen to neo-folk bands. I listen to Death in June and Changes and all of those, Current 93 and all those bands, and that's all very popular with the alternative right. So as a result, like, I've known about this stuff for ages. So for me, it's not really as jarring as I think it would be for a lot of people. So that's part of it right there. Like it's just I've kind of already made peace with the differences I have with it. And as such, it's not difficult for me to interact with people I maybe disagree with about different things.
Well, from my end, like one of the big things I argue, you know what? There's this our modern civilization is all about purchasing an identity at Hot Topic and signing up for an ideological party so you can scream at people and say you're better than them. And the alternative right, it's just as bad for falling into that trap at times. But I point out that, hey, listen, we are about actual open and free discourse on things. And what somebody else does with their life, I don't care about. Now, if they are affecting me, you know, if there is, I don't want to get into any controversial examples, but if there is some social phenomenon that's going on.
Smoking pot before his shift.
Yeah.
Exactly. Or, you know, actually, let's say there's a huge problem with opium usage in China. You know, at that point, yeah, that's having negative externalities. But I'm not trying to force a utopia. I'm not trying to force everybody to live the way that I want to live, because I don't even know how I want to live. I want the alternative right, the principles of the right, are supposed to be a small government that keeps the roads paved, that has a just court system, and that generally leaves people alone to figure out the best solutions. And
what were you saying that someone called you a racist? Like, what was it?
Oh my God, I've touched on the issue a few times. What it boils down to is that the left in America, the Democrats, I should say, the Democrats have been manipulating the black vote and claiming to be their friends ever since they stopped hating black people in the 40s. And the black community has seen absolutely no measurable benefit from that. The ratio of black home ownership compared to white home ownership has been a consistent ratio since 1910. Any effects from slavery stopped existing in 1910. So slavery's not an issue anymore. It's not, at least it's not a measurable one. Get over it. You know, you're hurting yourselves. Blacks are hurting themselves by obsessing over the slavery thing. They're turning themselves into useful idiots to be manipulated by the Democrats, who don't actually give a good goddamn about black people. They just want the votes. And there's a number of social ills that seem to be getting exacerbated. Now I don't have enough evidence to back this up. This is just
okay. I'm just gonna interrupt here because we're coming into the home stretch, and this sounds like a topic. That could go for hours. I'm gonna give Crystal the opportunity. Did you want to respond to any of that, or?
Well, there was no full. I can't because I don't know the whole story, so we'll just have to let it go.
There was one thing that right quick. Somebody, one of you all, Typhon, I believe, was asking about my audiobook project. Which one were you referring to?
I'm not sure if this is the audiobook project. I know there were two projects that I saw. One was the one that was about cats, which I thought was really. I listened to a bit of it and it was interesting. And then there was another one that was Primordia, which I only got to read a snippet about, but I would like to hear a bit more about that. And I'm sorry, Crystal, for ending that, but
no, it's okay.
Right quick. To clarify, Primordia actually is not my project. That was a video game that my illustrator for the Vessel Chronicles, which is the story about cats. My illustrator for the Vessel Chronicles, Victor Flug, he did that game, worked on that game years ago, and because God knows I'm, not paying him anything, I try to promote that project, game as much as I can. It is a really good game, by the way. I'm not just saying it. It's a really phenomenal game. But the Vessel Chronicles was my story about, that I started writing a year. It's a novel project I started writing a year ago because I had a 6-month-old kitten I was taking care of that died very suddenly, and and that is something that is was just very devastating for me. I am very much a cat person. And so that cat, Dusty, was very good friends with one of the cats I already had, Simba. And he and Simba were just great friends, and they were palling around all the time. And when he died, Simba was going from room to room of my apartment, calling to him, and I picked him up and said, "Dusty's not coming back, sweetie," and we had a good cry and everything. And it was and to deal with that, to start working through that as a coping thing, I started working on this story, and I wanted to do a story about what does it mean to have, why do we have pets, what do we mean to them, what do they mean to us, and that sort of thing. And it's very much in the style of like Watership Down and that kind of thing, which is, of course, another great parable dealing with death and all that.
Well, so Watership Down, for those who don't know, it's a story about rabbits. It's actually also very political.
Oh, yeah.
There's a very good film about it. At least I really enjoyed the film.
But it is nightmare fuel. Do not show your children.
Yeah.
Oh, God, yes.
I was like about that. It's one of those things that it's been one of those things I've been putting off watching.
I saw it as an adult, and it messed me up for days. And for God's sake, there's another one by the same author called The Plague Dogs. That will fuck your brain forever. Oh my gosh. Yeah.
All right. And on children's films, The Last Unicorn has America doing the soundtrack.
Yes. He turned me on to that one. So my favorite animated movie is The Secret of NIMH. So there you go.
Oh yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah. Jordan and I were totally geeking out about Don Bluth films the other day.
Oh, I love Don Bluth. And to answer your question right quick about and I'll let you all close, Dark Therapy is the other series that I have going. And Dark Therapy is my Twilight Zone, Outer Limits style anthology series. And I can actually tell everybody listening right now that what I'm doing is I've actually got, in fact, as soon as I finish doing this, I'm going to start recording it. I've got a backlog of episodes of Dark Therapy that I'm going to set up so that they come out week to week while I'm working on the movie, so that I have more content coming out. We're going to try to have some new Vessel Chronicles too. Victor's illustrations, we have to factor that in there. But yes, so thank you for asking. Those are two projects that are near and dear to my heart. And
and you know what? I think I can answer that question about me being a racist really succinctly. The video they were all linking to prove I was a racist was the video where I was telling off white nationalists about having hatred in their heart.
Yeah.
Interesting. Well, I mean, the blanketed comment you made earlier about black people making themselves stupid, that I took a little bit of an issue to, but I don't know what video you're talking about, so.
But look at it this way, okay? Women make themselves stupid by buying into a history of oppression of women, and not only buying into that, but carrying it forward into modern times where that oppression doesn't exist, where women have advantages.
My ancestors were peasant scum in Italy.
Yeah. And my ancestors were peasant scum in Mississippi, but that's one of the books I've been reading and researching ideas for this movie and everything is White Guilt by Shelby Steele, who is a black conservative commentator, and he makes a really good point about slavery. He said one of the problems with slavery is it denies you the ability to live your life as you choose, but it also denies you the ability to take responsibility for your life. And if you and once you are free, freedom comes with liberty, but it also comes with responsibility. You take on the responsibility for your own life. And that if you hold on to the slave mindset, it's going to...
I'm anti-bigotry of any kind. So, I mean, I'm not gonna say that, I don't applaud anybody being bigoted, and that includes every single ethnicity. Yeah. So, and I don't, I did a video on this stuff. So, I mean, I get it. I mean, it's just, I guess some of the wording wasn't landing with me. But
I understand. No, well,
I understand what you're saying.
Above and beyond all else, Davis and I are both passionately opposed to bigotry, prejudice, hateful bullying people, all of that sort of thing. So all of the waxing philosophical that we do back and forth is in the abstract. It's different ideas, but at the underlying core of it all, we're opposed to prejudice, opposed to bigotry, opposed to bullying. That's why we're making this fucking movie. Yeah.
Awesome. And we gotta wrap things up, I guess, because James has a hot date tonight. Is that what he's telling us?
Giggity.
But yeah, giggity. Allison, did you have anything else you wanted to say? I think you guys can also support the Sarkeesian Effect by going to their Patreon. What was that? Is it the what's the address for that, Jordan? Real quick.
Patreon.com/the Sarkeesian Effect. All one word.
Yeah, and Allison, our Patreon.
All right, and you can also support Honey Badger Radio as we spread evil like so much butter over the world.
In the voice of
tasty.
In the voice of Gilbert, and yes, tasty evil butter.
And evil Harry Potter erotica, and
yeah. But let me get it out. Let me
Harry Potter. Does it have to be Harry Potter?
Yes, it does.
Yes, it does. Damn it. Okay.
All right.
That's the one with Captain Picard, right?
Oh, okay, everybody.
And the lightsabers.
All right. Okay. I want to
the
thank
One Ring?
everybody for
let me get the damn web
Christ, we gotta wrap things up.
Shut up,
Crystal.
Shut up, Karen. Everyone. All right. www.patreon.com Honey Badger Radio. Thank you and good night.
Crystal.
Good night.
Crystal, do the thing.
Ow!
Like a furry torpedo to the jugular. This is Honey Badger Radio, radio with bite.